Tullamarine Airport, Melbourne, March 20, 2009. For Australia's second busiest airport, it's just another Friday. Domestic flights getting holidaymakers out of town and businessmen home for the weekend, plus a regular schedule of international departures. Australia has never had a major air disaster, and there are no thoughts of one today. One of the last flights of the day is Emirates Flight 407, an Airbus A340 to Dubai, scheduled for 10:30 p.m. Petra and Mihar, a young couple from Slovenia, are on their way home from the trip of a lifetime.
We've been together for 5 years now, and back then that was our first big trip together.
The trip to New Zealand was fantastic. We traveled for 2 months. We bought a car there, a camper van, and we drove the whole New Zealand.
With 257 passengers on board, the plane is nearly full.
We were good travelers, but in terms of being afraid of flying or not, probably Miha was always more comfortable with flying than I was, but I was never really scared.
We are sitting at the back of the plane in the 34th row.
We did check the films we could watch, the video games we could play.
In the cockpit, normal preparations are underway. The first officer is entering data into the plane's computers.
Emirates 407, pulling away from stand.
It's 10:15 p.m.
Cleared for takeoff.
At first, everything seems to be fine.
80 knots.
But then acceleration down the runway is sluggish.
We were running down this runway for a really long time. I'm not an expert, but I remember thinking, okay, why are we doing this for such a long time? I mean, we didn't take off.
The captain can still abort the takeoff. But he chooses to pass the point of no return.
V1.
Captain calls rotate.
Rotate.
Co-pilot applies the normal aft stick and nothing happened. The captain at this stage has no option to stop it. It was only a go decision that he could make.
As they near the end of the runway, the wheels are still firmly on the ground.
The aircraft passed the runway threshold onto the grass.
The captain orders the pilot to pull up further.
So the captain called again, rotate. The co-pilot applied more input, a larger input, and this time the aircraft started to rotate.
I felt a bump. At that point, I didn't know that was the tail strike.
They are rotating the plane so steeply that the tail is hitting the ground.
There was millions of sparks at the window coming from somewhere from the plane.
We could all feel the vibration, and we could smell the smoke after that. We all were terrified.
The pilot now pushes the throttle to maximum speed.
We just hold each other's hand.
I remember saying, telling him I love him.
Hundreds of feet after the end of the runway, the plane limps into the air. But it's not over yet. The plane is inches from the ground and barely climbing. 600 feet past the end of the runway, it's just 2 feet above the ground. They've still got to clear the lights, perimeter fence, airport buildings. Right now, they are way too low. Then the plane's undercarriage hits an airport light. Somehow, the plane stays in the air. Next, the perimeter fence. If the undercarriage tangles with it, it's all over.
The worst feeling I had was that I was feeling totally helpless.
They clear the fence by inches. Finally, the plane climbs away out of danger at last. Half an hour later, after dumping fuel to reduce weight, the plane touches down successfully.
Of course, the people started applauding.
Petra and Miha are deeply shaken, but alive. It's been the nearest of misses.
I thought, this is the end. So yeah, when we left the plane, it was absolute relief. I just wanted to go away from the plane as far as possible.
What could have been Australia's worst ever air disaster has been averted. But how did it get this close?
I think that's basically what it was.
When they interview the pilots, the Australian investigators are staggered by the simplicity of the answer. It all goes back to those takeoff preparations when the first officer put the data into the plane's computers.
So the crew enter the weight into the electronic flight bag performance module, it's a little program, and that calculates the speeds needed to be entered into the aircraft systems for takeoff. So it knows the length of the runway, for example, at Melbourne, it knows the temperature, the wind, and the air pressure, so it can work out exactly what the performance is needed or what can you do from that runway.
The first officer made a simple error.
But of course, just like any computer system, garbage in equals garbage out.
He typed in the wrong weight. The first officer entered 262 tonnes when it should have been 362. At takeoff, things are so critical that one digit nearly killed 300 people.
So that caused the flight calculation computer to compute a wrong V1 and a wrong rotation speed for the aircraft.
The thrust is too low, the aircraft's too slow, it doesn't lift off as planned.
The plane only survived because the pilot finally overrode the system to achieve full power. It was an extraordinarily narrow escape.
This was a lot closer than any of us would wish. That's one of the reasons we've put so much effort into understanding how this happened and why it happened.